Hello viewers, I'm Adigoke Victor Aiwale Odufa. I'm glad to reach you through this video once again. And the purpose of this channel is to actually make success achievable in that chosen course of years. In the light of these, I have prepared an interview with an iconic student from the Department of Physiology. Yes, it's to help students know the amount of strength you have to give to each courses and the amount of attention you have to give to each lecturers. Stay tuned.
My name is Kalejai Noimolaoluwa. I graduated from Physiology LAUTECH Ogbomoso and also a postgraduate student of LAUTECH Ogbomoso. Although physiology has been a course that from the onset was quite tasking, but along the line, one got to adapt to every circumstance one finds oneself. So, although I was lucky that I also graduated with a 2-1, even despite the hurdles and burdens of school. So, to the glory of God, it's not by power, it's not by might, but also God has always been very grateful. He has been faithful to us because not only reading, but also prayers. Because I'm the type that loves fasting a lot. Whenever I'm into any form of challenge or even exams period, I fast. From the onset, immediately I got to college after my 100 level days. While I was in 100 level, I had some friends that actually were in 500 level, 400 level physiology. So on getting to the department, I had to ask them for some certain informations like which courses are the courses that give one challenge a whole lot on campus in physiology. Some of them were mentioning anatomy, some were mentioning biochemistry. So I just had to find out that which one does not have solution at all. That whenever there is a bottleneck, that bottleneck has come to stay. So they told me biochemistry. Then I picked up a very high affinity for biochemistry that even when I want to read physiology courses, I'll read biochemistry so as to enhance my performance in biochemistry, because I know, like I've always had history, that biochemistry is a very hot department. So, and some other scenarios like asking them, okay, if this or that takes us this one takes us that, what are they expecting, what are their expectations? And I think that went a long way. Yeah, it went a long way to save my physiology career. What would I have done better? There are a whole lot. There are a whole lot. But one of the things I would have done better was associating more and extracurriculum activities, because I was the type that I was so fond of one man mupo, myself alone. Although at some point I had a very brilliant roommate that loves politics. So myself and him, whenever we read, when we are on our bed, when we want to sleep, we just ruminate on what we have read during the day. And we try as much as possible to maximize our day, that even when we want to do other things, it does not affect our academics. But let me go back and say that mingling, I would say if I had the chance, I would have to correct that aspect of my stay on campus, because I noticed that some persons that we graduated together, they finished very well, and they also have some certain income, how they make money, and it's not illegal, very, very legal. I think that aspect, if I had the chance, I would love to correct that.
All right.
Wow. You see, this aspect is something that is very peculiar and very important in physiology, because some lecturers, they give you information, they expect you to be very, very attentive and smart, because that's what I call working smart and working hard. From the onset when I entered the department, I was working hard, but later I started working smart. Working smart in what sense? There are some lecturers that whatever they will ask you in the exam, they must have said it jokingly in the class. So I make sure I take note of them and I star them in my notebook. Although I'm not a front sitter, neither am I a backbencher. I sit in the middle of class. Even when my friends are gisting, my ears are very, very sharp and attentive to whatever the lecturer is saying. Because someone like Dr. Falabi now is the type that he will just continue to say a whole lot of things. As he strikes his mind, that's when he says them. So what I try to do is I make sure I'm jotting down everything he has said. Although sometimes you miss some things out, while some of my friends record. So from the recordings, I just get them after I've read. I'll tell them to send me the recordings, then I listen to them in form of a music. Then from there, every other thing that I've missed out on, I'll just fill in the gap in my notes. But when it comes to the likes of Dr. Saka, he's a teacher. He's not a lecturer per se, because at some point he'll give you notes. The notes he's giving you, he has given you the guide of what you are expected to read, so that you will not just go and start windling and bustling in textbooks, whereas you are shying away from the important points that he needs you to write for him in the exam. But when it comes to Dr. Mrs. Ajao, Dr. Mrs. Ajao is also a teacher, because she give you notes, she gives assignments, but you see those assignments, most people take it with levity, and that assignment goes a long way, because that will always serve as a buffer for you whenever the exam is woeful. That is what she will fall back to. Who are those that have done my assignment? Then she will grade that based on merit. Then she use it to buffer the exams. When it comes to Dr. Adesha, everybody knows him. He takes notes for you in class, and he expects you to give him the notes, if not all 100%, but at least give him about 80% of his class notes back. When it comes to Dr. Ajayi is a very fantastic lecturer. Everybody likes him because of his style of lecturing. But there's one peculiar thing about him. He is not the type that loves the introductory aspect of his lectures. He prefers to ask questions from the last lecture backwards, rather than from the first lecture forward. So I think that should be a plus to us whenever we are reading his lecture notes. Why Dr. Mrs. Gay? Dr. Mrs. Gay is one of the most simplest lecturer in the department, but some persons tends to have issues with her classes, because Dr. Mrs. Gay will just discuss in class. She won't give you notes. She won't tell you outlines. You are the one that will start figuring outlines out of whatever she has said. Why Mr. Olabi the brainy, his questions are most times are not always direct. It requires you to think and digest before you start writing, because sometimes whatever he too will ask you in the exam, sometimes he must have said it jokingly in class. Maybe he must have cracked a joke and everybody is smiling. He will just say whatever is going to ask in the exam. So it will now be left for those that are smart enough to just document. Why Dr. Ogundipe is more or less like an amorphous lecturer. He will just come to class. Immediately he starts the class, he has started saying whatever he's going to ask in the exam. Sometimes he will even give you guide questions. Those guide questions are pointers to what you should expect in the exam. But most people tend to find this class boring, because some persons will say as he's writing on the whiteboard marker is rubbing them off. But unfortunately, if you are smart enough, immediately he starts putting the marker on the board, you need to start documenting.